There are many benefits to Tesla's full self-driving beta beyond the competition in the form of Cruise and Waymo, but one of the biggest unexpected ones is the fact that you have butts in the driver's seat. Plus, could the new Tesla Model 3 Project Highland actually end up being cheaper than the current version? It looks like it might be. Let's take a look. Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. I'm going to start with this article from businessinsider.com that was published just today as I record this video. I will of course leave a link to all the stuff in the description as usual, so you can check all this out on your own. The title of the article is Tesla's sales in China have tumbled and its slumping economy may not be to blame, Bank of America says. So the article goes on to say that Tesla's sales have slumped by 31% compared to June. And you can see here underneath it says Tesla experienced several months of strong demand in China after it lowered prices in December of 2022 on the Model 3 and Model Y by 13.5% and 10% respectively. But the demand reversal in July suggests those initial gains may be temporary. And of course, up here you can see that Tesla deliveries dropped by 31% month over month in July, and pay attention to that month over month, while BYD's sales actually rose 4%. So first of all, good for BYD, and especially in a very difficult economy where it sounds like the auto market is contracting significantly, any growth is actually amazing. Remember that BYD is selling gas cars in addition to electric cars, although it sounds like most Chinese consumers are not really purchasing gas cars at this point. And on its face, this actually looks very, very bad for Tesla, but you should definitely check out this video where I talk about all of the arguments about why Tesla is going to fail. One of those arguments is to cherry pick data and to assume that that expands out to the wider world. So what we've got here is we've got the month of July compared to the month of June. The month of June is the last month in the quarter where Tesla generally keeps their vehicles in country. They don't ship them out. Remember that China is the main export hub to the world. So they have to produce cars that they ship to Australia, to Malaysia, to other parts of the world, including even parts of Europe, even though Giga Berlin is starting to take over that. So the first month of the quarter is usually the month where Tesla actually puts a whole bunch of vehicles on ships in China and then ships them around the world. And then as we move on to the third month of the quarter, which would be September in this case, what will happen is they won't ship out as many vehicles to other countries and instead will sell them in China because it's quicker to transport them around the country rather than put them on boats where they can be for several weeks. And so in order to make the quarter look reasonable, what they want to do is they want to ship early, get the vehicles there in August and September so they can sell them wherever they're going. And then of course, keep the vehicles that they manufacture in the second half of August into September more in the country so that they're able to then sell those locally. So certainly there could be a dip and certainly it could be important, but comparing the month of June, which is the last month of quarter two, to the month of July, which is the first month of quarter three, where they're going to be shipping a lot of vehicles overseas, could mean that Tesla is looking at a situation where they don't have that many cars to sell right now. So while we certainly need to watch this space, let's wait until August and September and see how Tesla's China sales do in those months. If we still see a 30% decline in September, then we could actually be looking at a real issue. But I would say hold off and don't freak out about this at this point, because there's a really good chance that they have just taken all of their inventory and shipped it overseas at this point, which explains the reduction in sales in China itself. And speaking of sales in China, let's look at this tweet from Eliana from a couple of days ago. According to financial reports, Tesla's new Model 3 has begun trial production already and is expected to start mass delivery, I think that's mass production, in September and begin deliveries in October. Based on the estimated cost of parts, the guide price is around 200,000 yuan and will use the new 66 kilowatt hour M3P battery. So first of all, of course, this is all speculation, so take this with a grain of salt, obviously, until Tesla announces anything. Second of all, big kudos to Sam, the Electric Viking, for nailing this a couple of weeks ago now. He said that he expected that deliveries were going to start in the September-October timeframe, so it looks like he's correct. And third, notice that this is an M3P battery. That's a lithium iron phosphate battery doped with manganese, which actually has higher energy density than standard lithium iron phosphate batteries, but is also very inexpensive to create and has the robustness of LFP batteries. So this is all to the good if they are using M3P batteries in these new cars. And this translation is not fantastic, but I'm going to go ahead and read the original Chinese in translation, of course, since I can't read Mandarin. Model 3 remodeled models, that's a terrible translation right there, start trial production of lithium manganese iron phosphate is expected to increase volume. It is reported that Tesla's redesigned Model 3 has started trial production and is expected to start mass supply in September, and deliveries will begin in October. Compared with previous expectations, this progress has been advanced, and that is true. According to the estimated cost of components, the guide price of this new car is around 200,000 yuan, and it will use the new 66 kilowatt-hour M3P battery provided by CATL. Mainly the trial production of the facelifted Model 3, that's interesting, ahead of schedule. Lithium iron phosphate is expected to accelerate its ramp up. Yuwei and BYD are also accelerating the development of lithium iron manganese batteries. 2023 may be the first year of lithium iron manganese. So this is great news regarding the Project Highland Model 3, and also indicates why Tesla is probably doing the whole full self-driving transfer thing right now and trying to push people to purchase vehicles right at the moment, because if deliveries are going to start in October, they obviously want to clear out their inventories right now. The thing that really caught my eye, however, was this 200,000 yuan price for the Model 3, because I recalled that the Model 3 was actually more expensive than that in China. So I went and looked at the current price of a Model 3 in China. This is, I assume, the standard range. I don't read Mandarin again, but it's 231,900 yuan. And that translates to about 32,168 US dollars. And what does the 200,000 yuan price translate to? Well, it translates to about $27,743, or about $4,500 less than the current Model 3. And certainly and I think most other people have been assuming that the Project Highland Model 3 was going to come in at a higher price tag than the current Model 3, because of course it's the new version. But if they introduce a new version of this vehicle, and it's also at the same time cheaper than the current version, that is going to be a real game changer. So of course I went and looked at US prices. You can see here that the base Model 3 is $40,240, or just about exactly 25% more expensive than the Chinese version. And very interestingly, if we multiply that 25% extra by the cost of the supposed new Project Highland Model 3, that puts us almost at exactly 35,000 US dollars for the Model 3. Now, if you remember when the Model 3 was first introduced, Elon teased that there would be a $35,000 version of the car. Very, very briefly there was, but never again. But now we actually could be looking at this refreshed version selling for around $35,000 in the United States. And with the US IRA tax credit, that would be effectively $27,750. That is a remarkably low price. So again, please take all of this with a grain of salt, but if this does bear fruit and we see this kind of price reduction in addition to a refreshed vehicle, Tesla is seriously going to hit a home run. That means that this car is going to be priced around the level of the Chevy Bolt, which is not even close to competitive. And if they can do the same thing with the Model Y and actually reduce the price of that when they get the Project Juniper Model Y out, I don't know. It's going to be absolutely crazy, the demand for these vehicles. So keep an eye on this space, obviously, in the next couple of months. And if these prices actually bear fruit, the July slump in sales that Tesla is witnessing here is not going to repeat itself, because this is going to be something that is just going to make the consumer go crazy if we're looking at that much of a price reduction. From that, let's turn to full self-driving and this Wall Street Journal article. America's most tech-forward city has doubts about self-driving cars. Alphabet's Waymo and General Motors Cruise are struggling to win over San Francisco residents and officials, a major hurdle in their nationwide expansion. And combined with that, we've got CNBC's last call tweet that has a video attached to it. California is expected to vote on expanding the presence of driverless cars in San Francisco, but what happens if the cars malfunction? NBC Bay Area senior investigative reporter Bigad Shaban experienced firsthand what happens when things go wrong. So first, let's take a look at about a minute and 20 seconds of this video. Again, the link is in the description.
But we then invited a longtime driving instructor, Eugenia Borges, to join us on a second ride. About 1 minute in, our car was at a green light, but wouldn't budge.
It's a very safe situation for the car to turn, and it's just staying here. I'm not sure why.
The car eventually inched forward, but kept stopping.
We're kind of now riding in between two lanes.
Then, all of a sudden, it hit the gas.
Oh.
Okay, I don't know what it's doing now.
Our car drove straight towards the median and just stopped, picking up almost 2 full lanes.
This is not good.
People are honking at us.
Soon came the looks from other drivers.
How does this compare to the worst driving student you've ever had?
Oh, this is much worse.
While other drivers cruised right past that closed lane, our car sat parked on a busy street for 20 minutes, causing a traffic jam for blocks.
What's your reaction to it being a driverless car stuck here?
I'm not surprised.
Hey there, guys. Just wanted to check in.
Back inside our car, Cruise customer service contacted us to say they detected a problem. Their solution? They sent us a driver to get behind the wheel.
All right, so clearly from that video, there are problems with Cruise and Waymo. Obviously, they do not function perfectly. I took a couple of screen grabs here to indicate what I think caused the problem, and that is that we had a road work thing, so the car was making a right turn, as you know, I guess from my cursor, it was going like this into the scene. So basically, it was pulling into this area. It saw this road work ahead and this traffic cone, and that freaked out the Waymo, of course, because it has LiDAR, it has high definition mapping. It's very, very brittle. It's not able to deal with changes in scenery and things like that. So it had problems, but eventually it made the right-hand turn. But then as it made the turn, it saw this construction in the distance, at least this is my opinion about that, up here in the corner where I've got it sort of highlighted. And then what it did was it just sort of turned into the median, into that bush, and just sat there blocking one lane plus a little bit of another lane of traffic. So it was interesting what Cruise said. They were like, oh yeah, it did the safe thing and it got out of the way and stopped. It's like, that's not the safe thing. What it should have done, if nothing else, was to pull in behind this white car here. And then it could have been in a parking spot and it could have been totally out of traffic, which would have been much less of an imposition on everyone, including the people in the vehicle. So I'm sure people who have driven Tesla's full self-driving beta are like, yeah, every once in a while, the car will get into a situation where it just like goes, help, I don't know what I'm doing. Much less frequently than this, it would have handled all of this construction no problem at all. I am completely convinced, because it does that all the time. A lot of times what it does is it sort of pops up like a little warning and it's like, oh, there's construction and I'm more scared than usual, just to alert you that there could be problems, but it always handles this stuff very, very well. But again, once in a while, it does get into situations that it can't get itself out of. So what is the difference between Tesla's full self-driving beta and Waymo and Cruise? Well, the difference is that there is somebody sitting in the driver's seat. So when this happens, just like with Waymo, they had to send somebody out, but it was a 20-minute delay to get the person to come and take the wheel and drive off. Whereas in a Tesla vehicle, if it stops, if it does something weird like that, you just take over instantly. It might be a second or two of a delay as you take over and you get out of the situation. And so in addition to all the other strategically brilliant moves that Tesla made, like installing cameras and hardware on all of their vehicles from like 2017, 2018 forward, so they could collect data, so these things could be running on streets, so they could be beta testing all of this stuff. And of course, in addition to having a massive fleet as opposed to like 400 vehicles on the road, the other brilliant strategic move on Tesla's part, especially in retrospect now, is that they have drivers in the driver's seat. So in other words, instead of trying to get this party trick of saying, look, you can sit in the back and the car drives itself, but when something goes wrong, you can't do anything about it. In the case of Teslas, they're not making a big fanfare about how you can drive everywhere. And again, I guarantee you, especially on highways, that Tesla could apply and probably get permission to drive under some circumstances on highways, maybe in California, maybe in Texas, maybe in Arizona, whatever. They could get permission to do this, but they're not interested in doing that. They don't want this party trick. What they want to do is actually create a fleet that can drive on its own eventually. So what Waymo and Cruise have done is they've gone like, look at us, look, we can drive without somebody in the front seat. But when something goes wrong, it's a very bad situation. It's very embarrassing to them. You could tell they didn't respond to the request. Afterwards, they just had some blah, blah, blah that they said to try to make it all sound okay. Whereas with Tesla, if something goes wrong, the driver just takes over and gets out of that situation very, very easily and painlessly, and people don't even notice. So the fact that Teslas actually have butts in seats, and specifically in the driver's seat, turns out to be a massive advantage for Tesla's full self-driving over these other driverless vehicles. And that means that as opposed to having to fight against communities that are very wary of these self-driving cars, Tesla vehicles are just everywhere and nobody really pays them any mind whether they're doing full self-driving or whether the human is driving. And that again is a massive advantage for Tesla going forward. So while Cruise and Waymo and their tiny fleets struggle and create these awful, awkward situations, Tesla is getting very, very close to full self-driving, and they're doing it in a way that people don't even notice. All right, I hope you enjoyed this episode and found it fun and interesting and thought-provoking. And definitely let me know if a Project Highland Model 3, if it's $35,000 for real, legal in the United States. Let me know what you think about whether you'll purchase one or not. And of course, while you're down there in the comments, please do like the video so other people can find it. And of course, consider subscribing for more of this kind of content. As always, a huge shout out to my patrons on Patreon, my YouTube channel members, and of course my X subscribers. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel in any way that you can. And of course, if you want to join the teams, just check out the links in the description. And if you're interested in a whole bunch of really cool merch, check out our merch store. Link is in the description. We have TeslaBot t-shirts, the Tesla meme t-shirt, Success is a Possible Outcome, 4680 battery cells. All of that stuff is on t-shirts, mugs, tumblers, and on. So check it out. And finally, don't forget we are both Tesla and Amazon affiliates. If you look in the description, you can see how going shopping for a new Tesla, a solar roof, a Powerwall, or anything on Amazon helps out the channel. In the meantime, I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.